Ready to go.
Dog.
Alan's there. Hey, Alan.
Hey, how you doing?
I'm right. How are you?
I'm good. I actually didn't have a shirt on when Gardner called.
Well, that's great, Alan. Now that we're
You know,
live, we've lost our audience because they were like, we had a chance to see Alan Levine without a shirt on it. Now, that was the multimodality they were all here for.
It's a different sort of mode than I was barking.
Well, and Jessica has now joined us. Hello, Jessica.
Hello.
So here we are with a live hangout. It may, in fact, be the last one, although I hate to say that. It sounds so final and everything. But it's a live hangout today to talk about multimodality in inquiry projects. I see I am merely a pulsating picture now, which is probably a better thing to be. But we're gonna talk about how inquiry projects can usefully and interestingly, and I think also organically, support and include various kinds of rich media items. The idea is to do something that gets away from simply illustrating a point with a picture, although that's fine, but can we go deeper? Can we make something that's a little more unified in terms of its approach to the overall design and to the way in which the various elements, sound or video or images, along with the words, can usefully be a kind of a larger synthesis. Some of this comes to me from film study, which I always enjoyed teaching because one of the things that students were able to see very quickly is that there's a lot of choice, a lot of design thinking that goes on into a movie that you wouldn't necessarily consider, but everything from the color of the costumes to where the camera is in relation to the characters and so forth. And I think there's some useful analogies with what we do with rich media inquiry projects as well. You really do want to create a total experience, if at all possible, and not simply have things be just little decorations, though they can be interesting too. So all of you have had some experience in various kinds of multimedia or rich media. You've had a chance to think about what we're going to talk about today and maybe offer some ideas for students. So I will just throw the Hangout open and ask anyone who has particular examples or ideas or commentary to have at it. Go for it.
Will everyone jump at once?
yeah.
Don't make me call on you. I do have Bonnie's example. By the way, Bonnie Boaz, everyone, is somewhere over Kuala Lumpur or somewhere right now. But she sends her very best wishes, and I will call up the example that she gave us earlier today and make sure we have that available when we're ready. But actually, let's start with Alan. We haven't heard anything from Alan for a while. Alan, you've been doing a lot with photography. You've been doing a lot with various kinds of multimodal expression for a while, and you don't write a lot of academic papers, so you're probably a really good person to talk to about how to do this differently. You have any thoughts about how our students can put their inquiry projects together in a way that will be smart and satisfying and good as argumentation and creative without just getting fussy?
Okay. I was trying to finish my salad, but you caught on me first. Totally unprepared. I mean, first I would draw upon just what people see in terms of their normal web browsing and reading activity to pay attention to some of those media connotations that you described from film. I have this great book called the Cinematic Storytelling that tells a lot about
Losing Alan.
papers purpose of what you're talking about. I was looking
Are
for.
we losing Alan, or just me? You're kind of fading in and out. Is that just me or for everybody?
Yeah,
That's
me
everybody.
too.
Yeah, me too.
I think my internet is kind of flaky today. So you may have to call on someone else. I have bad internet
I can
today.
hear you now perfectly, of course.
Fine now.
Well, just say everything you said again and be spontaneous.
I'm going to turn off my camera just to conserve that. I think when you mentioned a film, I have a book I've been going through called Cinematic Storytelling, and it's by a film teacher from USC, and she basically, breaks down film scenes and shows you that, everything that you see in a film, things you don't even notice, are real plans of the story. It sounds obvious. First thing is just notice, like, I guess, like the things that appeal to you as an effective communication. I went out again.
Yeah, you're going in and out again,
Yeah,
unfortunately.
We're getting the auto-tuned cog dog. It's kind of cool.
Yeah, it is.
It's not neighbors on the internet.
This will be viral soon enough.
Yeah, if you have any helium there and you could take
I was trying.
the effect would be complete.
I was trying to find an example, but I will make a strong case to really pay attention to the use of hyperlinks and making sure that you're externally and internally referencing your material, so you're everything has its own sort of, through it. You think a lot in terms of as metaphors for what you're talking about. Pictures don't always have to be literal interpretations. You don't always have to say, like, I'm talking about a picture of argument. Like, Medium, the New York Times, places that are kind of high-end production, and get a sense about the so I was just reading the article that Gardner sent out about Matt, and there was media in there, but it was really well written, and that's what kept me engaged in the article too. I know you're talking about adding rich media to your inquiry project. I want to look for this example. It's sort of an active essay, and I'm now struggling to remember my tags in Digo so I can find it. And I will also put a link in the chat. I did a couple a presentation at Skidmore College. There's this kind of new thing called interactive documentaries, which are basically web-based documentaries that are trying to merge the medium of film and what the web can do. And I think you might find a lot of good examples in there. I'm going to stop because I'm probably dropping in and out again.
I think we had a little bit of that. And I just, as a quick follow-up, there was a story in the New York Times about a skiing accident, an avalanche that happened. And I think that was one of the interactive documentaries that you're discussing. I'm not sure, though. Is that one of the examples?
That's the one a lot of people refer to. It's called Snowfall, and it kind of set the pace. But there's
okay. Well, that's good confirmation.
Maybe make sure it gets out.
At least we're on the right track there. And I would emphasize that it's not as if we expect students to be able to take the next 2 days, bone up really quickly on HTML5 and come out with something that looks like Snowfall, but that the idea is to take a look at places where these things seem really well integrated, and not simply, well, there's some of this in a picture and some of this in a picture, and use that as an inspiration or as a guide without necessarily trying to do the same technical thing. So what about anybody else? Have you got examples to share, ideas that you'd like to take a look at?
Yeah, let me just share a couple. So I'm going to show two examples from undergraduate students from Lehigh University that were part of a course taught by Dr. Jeremy Littau, who's a journalism professor, and their final projects, they weren't arguments, but they were sort of reports that they had done, but they had to be kind of webified the way we're thinking of having our students webify their arguments. So hold on. I'm on this call here, Tom. Leave me alone. All right, let me screen share here. All right. All right, so do you see what I'm seeing?
Yes.
Okay. So here's a student that was doing a project about body image pressures in college females. And this particular student chose what at the time was a freely available platform called scrollkit.com. Now, I should add, this is no longer available. It's been subsumed, eaten up by WordPress. I'm not quite sure how WordPress has incorporated it yet, beyond maybe just a theme. But you'll notice what I like about this. Well, obviously, it's sort of pleasing to the eye, I guess, for me at least. Well, if you relax effect. And so what I should add is, while ScrollKit's not available, there are ways to do this. There are platforms to do this. I know one of my students in my section is exploring medium.com as a place for her project, where you can have this kind of parallax effect. So what I like about this is that she takes different approaches. So in this blue space, there's kind of a sentence. Here it's just a short quote. And then there's images that are incorporated, provocative, but I think help make the art. And then here, what we see is an animated GIF, which some might think as kind of a silly thing, but this animated GIF actually makes a point. The kind of before and after effect, which you could have a static image of the before and a static image of the after, but by doing it as an animated GIF, you get a better kind of representation of the point. Similarly, down here, you know, gone too far, and there could be narrative here, but there's actually a video here which kind of answers the question that she's posing in this project. And so I think it's just a good example to approach the project from a web experience. And there's quotes in here. You could have freestanding quotes or video incorporated here. I think this is her talking in a video, which I actually think this is one example of what's possible on the web. I'll show another one. This is another student in the same course whose, I guess, research project was how has Lehigh's campus changed over the past 150 years. This student chose Wix.com as her platform, which is also a free space for folks to create websites, and has some really interesting affordances. So in this one, what you see is there's this map right on the front page. Well, you can click on any of these buildings to get a little bit of a history. It's a way to navigate the web experience, to navigate the report, essentially. So I'm going to click on this building, and it takes you to Packer Hall. So I must have clicked on Packer Hall. I get some images, and this does a little there's a kind of a slideshow effect where you can click on different pictures of Packer Hall, and then there's a timeline, and then at the bottom there's a little video snippet kind of about the history of Lehigh's Packer Hall. So it's the student kind of talking through the history of Packer Hall. And then you can just navigate back to the map and click on another building. Has the same kind of effect, different pictures of the building over time, a little timeline, followed by a little history. So here is just, for me, just an interesting use of a particular website and its affordances to build out an argument or build out a project about the history of a campus, starting with kind of a map as the orientation point. So again, just another interesting example to me of what's possible when you do a project for the web specifically at the outset. So I'll stop screen sharing there and see what folks have to say.
Don, can I ask you a question about that?
Yeah.
I was having a conversation with Tom right after the meeting yesterday, and I thought it might be a good idea just to have, I don't know, like a group meditation about what exactly is the difference between a set of static images and something like an animated GIF where it's moving, or something like that clickable map, where you know, I mean, if it were me, I would say that you want the reader to be part of the experience of, you know, either describing what the campus is or allowing them to do their own self-guided tour, that sort of thing. But I mean, it is quite true that if you just had a series of static images instead of a GIF, or if you had, you know, like a bullet list of different buildings and their histories, you would convey exactly the same information. And it might be good for us all just to sort of get on the board about how exactly this is different.
Well, it really is about the experience. And as I was watching John go through that, I thought, first of all, the scrolling is it's a theatrical kind of device. There's a way in which you add the element of time and drama to this that you wouldn't if you were just being presented information. There's the gradual reveal. There's a curtain that goes up, a curtain that comes down. And with the Lehigh sort of navigational image, the interesting thing is that you're doing this little cognitive sleight of hand. Instead of just reading a list of things, you're actually inviting the user to engage with a representation in a way that leads to information, but the little hookup there is you touch this thing, a thing happens, the thing you touch represents the next part of what you're going to experience, and again, it becomes, I don't know, I think of it almost like a narrative or maybe a kind of almost being able to weave a magic spell.
Well, at the very least, the narrative arc, I guess, has to exist. I mean, otherwise, just a dump of images and GIFs that are related to a topic but not really functional with it. I mean, I think that going back to this idea of purposefulness or intentionality is really important, but also this idea of being organic. And I think these things are distinct. I mean, if you maybe go on a little bit back, but if you go back to this, talking about film, Wes Anderson movies are so wonderful for a lot of reasons, but everything in the frame are things that he created and made sure existed in the exact way that he wanted to exist. I mean, even down to like the little knickknacks on the table. And this is incredibly important, even though fairly benign to the viewer because they're not paying attention, but important to make the scene work the way he wants it to. This is quite different than like a movie like Marnie, the Alfred Hitchcock movie. I don't know if anyone's seen it, but everything was intentional with that movie, and it's set. It's meant to be set in Baltimore, and it's not a great movie. I don't like it very much, and I don't think it's excellent or anything. But the problem with the movie was that he didn't shoot on location. Everything that he did with it was on set. So it was just incredibly decadent things that were not authentic at all, and the movie wasn't successful because of it. I mean, so I think that this idea of not only just having the things that are intentional and work with the argument, but also like making them, situate them that don't disrupt the viewer or disrupt the way that someone's understanding a thing.
One of the things Hitchcock did emphasize, though, was that the idea that you would fill the tapestry, which I think is good advice for writers and for people who are working multimodally. You don't want anything just to be kind of throwaway or something that's just kind of padding or roughage or something like that. Every moment that you have your reader paying attention to you is a moment that you can work with. And the minute your reader wakes up from that dream or is not really fully engaged, you've lost your reader, and now you're going to have to work twice as hard to get her back into that space. So, really fill the tapestry. Make use of what you have, even and especially the links. I thought that was a great point from Alan. The hyperlink is a kind of a multimodal device.
Yeah, to me, what the student who did the Lehigh history thing that's kind of driven navigationally by that map, for me that's a good example of what the web affords for generating an argument that's different than paragraph after paragraph in a Word document. I mean, if the student's project was to make the argument that architecturally Lehigh has gotten away from its mission, let's say that was the statement they were defending, you could do it that way and have them navigate in no particular order and show how the buildings have changed over time, and so it's not a linear argument, so to speak, and that's hard to do in a Word document or a Google Doc or anything, but it's doable on the web.
Well, I think it might be useful to make a distinction between like the actual narrative that whatever the web document is creating and the sort of meta-narrative of the individual user experiencing the site and then maybe telling that or reflecting on what happened afterwards. Like John, you and I might look at, say, the thoughtsvectors.net site and navigate through that site very differently, but it would still be a very intentional website regardless of how long it took each of us to define our individual class sites on that first day, or something like that. That is relatively stable. I should think. But our experiences would be different, and that might be the thing to underscore. It's always happens when I talk.
If there's anything that y'all should learn from these Hangouts, it's that even your professors feel awkward about how we converse about things, just the way you do in class sometimes too. It's actually a difficult thing to be able to make all of this this stuff go. So we're all in this together, my friends. I'm trying to get Twitter to stop auto-correcting mise-en-scène so that it's mise-en-scène. But I wanted to put that in there because mise-en-scène is a dramatic and cinematic term for the way the action plays out in front of the camera.
Right.
And again, it's this idea of what kind of experience do you want to create for your user. And ideally, as Alan Kay said, every user interface, an interface is an interesting word because it means there are faces on both sides, right? Every user interface should be a learning experience. So the way you craft your inquiry project should be a little voyage of discovery for your reader that will be enjoyable.
Mm-hmm.
And I got my mise-en-scène out. Jessica, did you have anything from your experience with trying to get to the transmodality part of UNIV 200 that you wanted to pitch in?
Well, I mean, I've done this kind of writing in classes I've taught twice before. But once it was in, I think, 2008. It was so long ago. So I've used something called Wet Paint that doesn't exist anymore. And the other time I used Google Sites. And my experience with both of those was, sorry, it's echoing back really loud at me. Can you guys hear me okay?
Yep, you're fine.
Okay, just sounds weird on my end. So my experience with both of them was that they were rather limiting, and the way that it looked when it was done was interesting, but kind of antiquated. Now, when I look back on it, I was looking at them yesterday, thinking that I want to show one today, and because it was, 6 years ago or so, it actually looks old compared to the work that I'm seeing in WordPress now. But today, I mean, what I would share is that today I've been reading my students' drafts, and especially in certain ones, but overall in a lot, as I've been noticing so many different ways that students could give examples of what they're talking about through media. A lot of times I find myself giving feedback saying things, in normal print papers saying, can you give some examples of how this is true, or can you give some examples to show, a scenario where that might occur, because examples are a really important part of our reasoning. But I've been thinking about all the different ways that we can do more than just say, okay, I'm writing a paper about plants, here's a picture of a plant. I mean, that's okay, but I think there's so much more we can do with media. And so, I mean, an example I was just pulling up, one of my students wrote, Karen Richardson claims that whatever your passion or area of study, social media can help you connect with others in the field. Artists can explore the meaning of reincarnation, then find some tweaks about it, and apply this to a piece that they're working on. The results could be infinite. And I read that, and at first I said, can you give me an example of how this might play out? And then I was thinking visually, an example of that could be much more powerful than writing it out in a sentence or two, or perhaps in conjunction with it. So I guess one thing I've been thinking about is how it can do more than just, media can do more than just reiterate what we're saying in text, but actually say more. Does that make sense where I'm going with that?
Yeah.
Sure, absolutely.
It's just something I've been noticing. I'm trying to give feedback on as I read my students' drafts to try to, I'm learning about this too, so I'm trying to point out opportunities to do that.
Mm-hmm.
Now, Jason, you've just pointed out that the ThoughtVectors.net site is actually a multimodal piece of communication. I mean, I certainly think that's true, but what did you have in mind?
Oh, well, I suppose that if anything on that site is argumentative, it would be this is our learning community, or there are multiple ways of accessing all the different people who are interacting with one another in this class, in this course, right? And so in that sense, the many different pathways that would get you to connect with other learners would be, sort of part and parcel with. So the experience is the sort of message of actually activating and accessing that community. I think I said that 2 or 3 times in different ways, but it's not necessarily a profound argument, but at the same time, I do think that that's a wonderful example of a site that sort of forces one to grapple with its own sort of reflexivity. As you're looking at the menus at the top, as you look at the slider going through with like the most recent videos that we've done, and as you're looking at the sort of continually updating posts at the bottom and at the top in the header and the footer, this is something which is always sort of in motion rather than static, and that is also the way that we wanted the class to be seen.
Yeah, and I would just add, I mean, I think that the fun thing about this project is that all of it, everything in it is a choice that, I know I said this before, but everything that's in it is a choice that the creator makes, right? I mean, it's all a rhetorical choice. Where like if we had, I mean, if every student was, maybe not every student, but if many students were doing had the same argument to the T, where they were using the same premises to support the same conclusion, it would look different on each site or each creation that the student made. And it would do so because the student would draw on different examples to highlight certain points, frame it certain ways, let the viewer navigate the site in different ways, etc. So that's not to say that one student's right and the other one's wrong. Just that there's a lot that you can add to this thing to make it your own, but also proving a point.
Oh, that's right. And we've talked about this some over the last couple of weeks. How do you kind of get that sweet spot where you're being personally expressive, you're doing something that's meaningful to you, but it's not something that's so private or so kind of chatty haha that it feels almost like an in-joke or something that's too cute, and your reader is likely to go, who's this person? Why am I even paying attention to this? So it's great if you can communicate something of yourself, but you don't want to make it so inside or superficial that people then go, well, this is obviously not worth my time. I'll just go somewhere else.
Right. Yeah, I mean, sorry.
Go ahead.
No, that's a great question. I mean, I guess the being playful is not a problem so long as it's functioning in a certain way to enhance like the character of the creator.
Right.
So there's a difference between just being merely silly or esoteric, or doing it at a punctuated moment where it makes a lot of sense. And I mean, I think that what's been great about our posts and the things that we've been presenting while teaching this course is that we've all done it with things that we've written. I mean, if you're paying attention to the little Easter eggs that people have put up, I mean, some are merely funny, or some actually augment the point. And there's a distinction between those two things that, I mean, everyone needs to be attuned to, but again, that goes back to this intentionality point. What are you trying to do at any given moment for the viewer? But to say that, everything there influences how people are going to see you. Everything involves the character of the creator.
Right. That'll actually make you a little crazy if you think about it too much. So don't think about it too much. Don't hold your own that way. Understand that you have a number of opportunities. That's another thing I think that beginning writers don't always sense, is that you've got a huge opportunity, and your reader would actually like to give you the benefit of the doubt, if at all possible. So enjoy that. Here's something that some of my students did last year. See if I can share this. Yeah, there it is. Can you see that now?
Mm-hmm.
So it's a Wix site, again, and I've never actually used Wix myself, but apparently it's highly template-driven. It's, the template that you get is not necessarily the template that you end up using, but you can customize it. So this was a class that did their inquiry project on the class itself, and you can see that basically the landing page is a set of images. They're in different sectors. They are kind of deliberately inviting and baffling, but also there's a way in which, learn more. We can kind of understand what that is about. We kind of understand what that is. But you go into, see, for example, I can never remember which all of these are, which probably means that the design didn't work, or I'm just getting forgetful. But if I go to "This is so cool," Yeah, this is great. The students just decided to put all of the GIFs we had used through the whole semester in one place. So again, this is something that is kind of funny on its own, but it also would be, I think, intelligible to the class in a way that would be that they would enjoy. But then you can go to the dive in, and there's see if I can remember which of these it was. Yeah. So this is a kind of an interesting multimodal presentation. You've got a header here at the top, and then you've got a photo gallery, and you click on the photo gallery, and it takes you to the image. You get a nice little window. See, I have to make sure I'm clicking on the right thing, not the screen share, but the site itself. And then as you scroll down, you've got this really interesting meta essay with links out to everything that we had read during this semester. And it works in some really interesting ways. But the multimodal part of this, I guess, is that the students had thought of this as a canvas. And how do you want to paint your canvas? What goes where? How do you make the viewer into the experience and then lead the viewer into something that's going to be rewarding? So you fill the tapestry, you paint the canvas. It's not just like inserting images into a Microsoft Word document. Not that there's anything wrong with that.
Right.
Other thoughts?
You know, I think we've used the word intentional and purposeful, and I think it's a good word. If one learning outcome, I guess, of this digital engagement pilot is advanced levels of technology literacy, and technology literacy is defined in part as choosing the right tool for the right purpose, which in my research experience on technology literacy it is, then I think this stuff matters. And so if we get back to, for example, the Thought Vector site, that we can look at it as an example of kind of a multimodal site, but it wasn't built for the purposes of argumentation, right? It was built for a couple of purposes. It was built for kind of an informational purpose and an aggregational purpose, but it wasn't built to, maybe it was built to tell a story. We could make that argument, but it wasn't built to make an argument per se. And I often think about that. I think about, like, my colleagues say, you know, how's the course going? Is there a website you can show me? And I show them the site. I don't know how meaningful it is to them. It doesn't, because it doesn't kind of make a point. It serves purposes, but it doesn't make a point. So I think for the students to choose the right platform is very important. It's a form of technology literacy, and it's important to advance the argument. As Ryan said, it's a rhetorical choice. And so I have a student who, and I know we have internal debates about Tumblr, but a student who wanted to use Tumblr, and I didn't say no. I only told her that I have a hard time picturing how the affordances of Tumblr would allow for the development of an argument. But I challenged her to prove me wrong. But I just, you know, the way Tumblr works, it's hard for me to see how you would build an argument through what that particular platform allows.
I mean, I think that goes on, John, to the point about, you know, being linear and the problems with this, or the possible problems with this. And I mean, I think that at least with the assignment that as I've written it, I mean, it has to achieve certain components with the project. There has to be some form of introduction, there has to be some form of discussion, etc. At the same time, though, I mean, like going back to what we were talking about earlier, I mean, there's a distinction between just being linear or having this intention, and the intention being very clear. I mean, if we take us back to Hitchcock, which I like doing, you know, Jason shaking said no. Yeah. But I mean, he had this thing, you know, this great moment where he's in an interview saying, well, there's a distinction between letting waiting for the bomb to go off at the very end, or showing the viewer that there's a bomb, and the people in the movie not actually understanding there's a bomb that's about to go off. And I mean, this is very similar, I think, in a sense, to what we're trying to get at, right? So long as the viewer understands what's happening, and then that's going to come eventually, then we've succeeded. Rather than just having this like stuff happen, all at once at the end. I don't know if that works, but it works in my head.
Right, it's absolutely right. It shouldn't be just one thing after another. I mean, there should be a thread. We were talking about this yesterday. Even an argument can have a climax. You can structure this in a way, and I guess maybe one of the things we haven't talked about yet is to include affect. I mean, there's an idea that argument needs to be dispassionate, to be credible, and there is some truth to that, of course. You don't want to be simply pursuing your own agenda in a way that's driven by no thought at all, but just burning conviction. That said, burning conviction is not necessarily a bad thing, and being able to engage your readers' emotions usefully in ways that are not simply manipulative, but really do make what you're saying matter, that's a good thing, it seems to me. Otherwise, it's just reading a stock ticker, which may have its own affective component depending on how you've invested.
Yes, and that is a really great way of thinking about what the multimodal components can do. They augment the writing. It is possible to convey by tone just in the language by itself. I wholeheartedly endorse this concept, or I'm a little bit ironic about this other source's argument. But because we have these digital affordances, why not use them as well? We can do that with a witty aside through the use of a video or an image or some mood music. I haven't seen anyone advocate mood music yet, but it's possible.
But that's actually a great word. You can be witty. I mean, that's just, the word wit, of course, has to do with mental capabilities as well as saying something funny, but the idea is you're doing something that actually reinforces your point in a way that almost makes the intellectual experience come alive, right? I'm about to try to define wit here, so I'll stop. But that's the idea that it's a shared moment, and it can be very effective. I'm hearing lots of echoes for some reason. I'm not sure why, but I feel like I'm in the middle of a ball field trying to sing the national anthem, so I will not do that now.
Gardner, did you have the example from Bonnie's student that you wanted to share?
Yes. I've got it. Why, I have it right here. Let's see. It's about a hip replacement, I believe. So here it is. Or it should be. Yep, there it is. Paying till it hurts. So let me see if I can make that freeze on this. Yeah, so I will now scroll this. Maybe. Is it going to let me? Yeah. Just a note for the viewers at home, I'm scrolling 4 things at once, plus it's pouring down rain outside. I'm trying hard not to be distracted. Maybe if I actually say it aloud, I won't have to think about it anymore. All right. So this was the site. Is that right? Have I got the right site?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. And, boy, this is scrolling very slowly. But you can see there are images. There's a little pole over the side. Okay, now the sirens are sounding. Do you all hear them where you are? Is there a hurricane? Wow. Okay. I'm fine, really. Let's see.
There's a tornado warning in effect for Richmond.
Seriously?
Yep.
Wow. All right, could I simply...
Sirens going right now on campus?
They're not like tornado sirens, but fire engine sirens.
Yeah.
Oh. I thought you meant like the emergency siren.
No.
No, not that one. Not yet.
Last year they had us evacuate to the first floor when there was a tornado watch. Anyway, back to Bonnie's article.
Back to Bonnie's article. Yeah, I guess I was just trying for hazardous duty pay. So here we go. There's a... All right, let's see how this works then. So would we consider that Thunder part of the multimodality of the Google Hangout? I'm good with that.
It's mood music.
Yeah, it's mood music, as I say.
I
I
feel like
can turn it on through the computer on your end, and then it occurred at my house. Weird.
Cool.
no extra charge. All right, so if I click on this little thing here, comparing the two operations, it's going to take a while to come in. Oh, okay, this is interesting. It's a little New York Times video that's going to happen. All right, that's what that is. It's video content. But basically, it's a bit of reporting that has in it some nice graphics. It's got some quantitative, visual display of quantitative information. It's got some video content. It's full of links, by the way. I don't know if that was obvious or not from some of the other stuff, but I find the Times has really gotten pretty good about using links. And part of this actually drives you back to earlier stuff they've done, but a lot of it is simply augmenting the reporting they're doing by letting you take a deeper dive. And for me, the effect is really is quite impressive. Never mind the ads and the. Please don't put advertisements on your inquiry projects. I just want to put that out there.
Unless your argument is about advertising.
Sure. And if you find a way to monetize that, then you know.
Yeah, if someone wants to buy it, buy space.
Good on you. All right. So that's. There we go. We're back. Any other examples or thoughts about multimodality? I've got one more I'm looking up while you guys are thinking, but.
I'm sorry, I was talking for a long time with the thing muted. Is it okay if I jump in?
Yep.
Okay.
Please.
So, we were talking about it in terms of illustrations and how an illustration which seems inextricably, intertwined with the writing that precedes and follows it is going to be better than one that is simply an illustration. Like I mentioned the flower, and then there's a picture of a flower. And that is certainly an augmentation, but you can do more with that. I suppose I had a blog post out about this one yesterday, and I guess the advice that I just like to give to the whole group is not to think about it necessarily as a shorthand, but something which is necessarily going to enrich the project. So the picture being 1,000 words is kind of a canard in this case. If you're using your multimodal elements in a way which is sly and witty, sometimes you can also put yourself into a situation where you've just taken away, what would normally have been 3 or 4 paragraphs in a written essay. And really, I think it's an opportunity to unpack the thing that you put onto your project and to say more about why you put it in there, what about maybe why did you choose this particular element or this media aspect. What does it do for the project? It is. These digital projects are also an opportunity to be slightly more informal than a regular academic essay, and so this is something that your audience is going to want to know.
Yeah,
so it's an opportunity to say more rather than less.
Right. No, that's a great point. I mean, and also, that there's so much you can pull, from the web to bring in and unpack and tease out to support a point. Using primary data to bolster the argument.
I was busy looking up mise-en-scène and ended up going down another rabbit hole. In the end, I would say my advice is that we're obviously looking for your ability as a student to write a thoughtful, sustained, well-informed, articulate essay with words. But because it's going to be on the web, you can arrange how that is perceived, how it's experienced, how it's augmented, how it's integrated with images, with video, with sounds, with just the way things look on the screen. And I think we'll know that we're there when we think more about screens or displays than we think about pages. We're still, I think, very much in the middle of the kind of book metaphor. But the web offers really something else than that. I don't want to denigrate the book. The book is a great thing, but what we've got in our ability to be expressive and to be articulate about our ideas is really much more wide-ranging on the web. And if you run out of things if you run out of ideas, make it a website. Just go to the rampages.us site and make another site for yourself. You can make as many of those as you want. And WordPress is actually very flexible as a website builder, not just as a blogging platform. You can put a static page up as the first page. There are lots of good ways you can make that bend to your will. So be as fancy as you're inspired to be, but even out of some humble materials, you can make some great things.
We've talked about citations and references. Have we talked much about attribution?
I think that'd be great for you to talk about.
Well, so when you are using an article as a reference, as evidence to support a claim or an argument, we've talked about how what citations are is a way to give credit for where you got that idea from, in part. When you're using media, there's there's laws, but there's also kind of an ethos of attributing the work to its maker, and there are different ways to do that, and I think it's a good opportunity for folks to kind of explore a little bit about copyright law. We don't have time to do a whole copyright law course, but you're always, I would say, safe to, if you use an image, if you have just kind of a caption to the image that links out to where you got the image from, that's a fairly safe way to do it. There are ways to search for images that are public domain images where you don't have to give any kind of credit. There are ways to search for images that have what are called Creative Commons licenses on them, where your only requirement is to abide by the terms of that license, which may be you can use this so long as you're not going to make money off of it. Flickr is a good place to find Creative Commons images. In Google image search, there are ways to search for different licensed images. So I would encourage our students to be wary of, or be careful when you're using images or media to properly attribute it to its maker. Everybody's on mute except me.
I think you're right, John.
Ditto. It's good.
I just got a weather alert about lightning strikes around here, but I'm now on the incident response team, so I get frequent weather alerts. Okay?
Cool.
Yeah. So just so you know, it's lightning out here, and we might even lose power. So maybe we should take this opportunity to say, so long, everyone.
And be safe.
Yes.
Yeah, please do be safe. It really does look like it's getting, do you say lowering? It's lowering, right?
Yep.
Okay.
So ominous.
It is ominous. Looking practically like we should go outside and scream for Heathcliff, but that's only for you Bronte fans out there.
Yeah.
All right, well, thank you, folks. It's been lovely hanging out with you.
Thank you all.
Take
Happy
care.
writing.
Bye.
Bye-bye.